I should have known my mother wouldn't let me have this moment. She never did. But I never expected her to hijack my baby shower in front of all my friends and family, just to drop the most insane announcement I'd ever heard. We were in the middle of opening gifts, the atmosphere was warm, full of laughter and joy, until the sound of a spoon tapping against a glass silenced the entire room. My mom, standing proudly like she was about to deliver some heartfelt toast, smiled and declared, "I'll be moving in once the baby is born. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. You have no say." For a second I laughed because surely she was joking, right? Then I saw her face. Dead serious. Smug even. A few nervous chuckles rippled through the crowd, but then came an awkward silence. My best friend Claire shot me a wide-eyed look from across the room as if to say, "Did she really just say that?" My husband, Noah, sitting beside me, went completely still. His jaw clenched, his hands gripping his drink so tightly I thought he might shatter the glass. My stomach dropped. I forced a chuckle, trying to diffuse the tension. "Very funny, Mom." She shook her head, completely unbothered. "I'm not joking, sweetheart. A baby is a lot of work. You'll need me." There was something in the way she said it that made my skin crawl. It wasn't an offer, it was a statement of fact. A decision she had already made without my input. Noah finally spoke, his voice low and controlled. "We'll be fine, Diane." She smiled at him the way a teacher might at a misbehaving child. "Oh honey, you don't get a say in this." The room went deathly quiet. My chest tightened. Not a say? In our own home? I wanted to push back, to tell her that was never happening, but I could already feel the storm brewing. Claire cleared her throat. "So, cake anyone?" The party went on, but the mood had shifted. My mother, completely oblivious, or worse, completely aware, continued chatting, acting like she hadn't just announced she was moving into our house without asking. I told myself she was just being dramatic, that she'd get over it. I was wrong. Because 2 weeks later, when I opened the front door, still in my pajamas, holding my newborn in one arm, she was standing there, suitcase in hand. And that's when I realized she had never been joking. I stood there, frozen, staring at my mother like she had lost her damn mind. She had a huge suitcase in one hand and a smug smile on her face, as if this was the most normal thing in the world. "Well," she chirped, "aren't you going to invite me in?" My newborn whimpered in my arms, sensing my tension. I shifted slightly, tightening my grip around him. "Mom, what are you doing here?" She rolled her eyes, already pushing past me into the house, dragging her suitcase behind her like she was checking into a damn hotel. "I told you, honey. I'm moving in," she said, as if it was the most obvious thing in the world. I turned, stunned, watching as she walked straight into my living room, making herself comfortable on my couch. This wasn't happening. This couldn't be happening. From the kitchen, Noah appeared, his face still groggy from lack of sleep. When he saw her suitcase, he stopped mid-step. His eyes met mine in silent understanding. He knew. I knew. And just like that, something inside him snapped. Noah, my quiet, patient husband, the man who rarely raised his voice, walked past both of us, grabbed her suitcase, and marched right back out the front door. "Excuse me?" my mother gasped, spinning around. I followed him, heart pounding, watching as he carried the suitcase down the driveway. He popped the trunk of his car and, without missing a beat, tossed it inside. Then he turned back to my mother and said the words that changed everything. "Get in. I'm taking you home." Silence. Absolute, heavy, stomach-dropping silence. My mother's expression went from shock to furious in seconds. "I don't need you to drive me anywhere," she snapped. "I live here now." Noah crossed his arms, his face eerily calm. "No, Diane. You don't." She scoffed, folding her arms. "Oh, I think I do. You see, I already had my mail forwarded here. I even changed my driver's license address. Everything is already set up." I felt my stomach drop. Noah's jaw clenched. "You did what?" She gave a condescending smile, like she was explaining something to a child. "I knew you two would be too overwhelmed with the baby to handle the logistics, so I took care of it," she said sweetly. "Don't worry about the thing. Everything is already arranged." I looked at Noah, pure horror on my face. My mother was overbearing, sure, but this was next level insane. And then Noah took a step closer, his voice dropping to dangerous levels of calm. You have two choices. Get in the car and I'll take you home, or call a cab. Either way, you're leaving today. My mother's mouth fell open. She turned to me, her voice dripping with fake hurt. You're going to let him talk to me like that? I took a deep breath. For the first time in my life, I saw my mother for who she really was. Every guilt trip, every moment she had manipulated me into doing what she wanted, every time she had steamrolled over my decisions, it all clicked. I exhaled. Yes, I am. She turned bright red. This is unbelievable. You're choosing him over me? Noah stepped in before I could answer. No, he said. She's choosing herself. Something you've never let her do before. And that's when I saw it. The moment my mother realized she had lost control. My mother's face twisted in rage, but for the first time, there was something else in her. Panic. She wasn't used to not getting her way. But she wasn't giving up. She squared her shoulders, lifting her chin, trying to salvage the situation. Fine, she hissed. I'll go. But you'll be begging me to come back. Just wait. Then she grabbed her purse, yanked her suitcase from the trunk, and stomped down the driveway with all the drama of a scorned queen. We watched in silence. Only when she disappeared around the corner did Noah let out a slow exhale. She's not done. I nodded. My stomach twisted. I know. And I was right. That night, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. First it was text. Mom, I hope you're happy. You've humiliated me. You've chosen that man over your own mother. Mom, you think you don't need me? You'll see. Mom, you are so ungrateful. After everything I have done for you. Then came the calls. First once. Then twice. By the fifth call, I sighed and finally answered. Hello. A furious voice exploded through the speaker. What is wrong with you? How could you do this to your own mother? It wasn't my mother. It was my aunt. I pulled the phone away from my ear, already exhausted. She called you, didn't she? I said flatly. My aunt scoffed. Of course she called me. She's in tears. You and your husband kicked her out like a piece of trash. She has nowhere to go. I rubbed my temples. Here we go. She has a house, Aunt Linda. She has a job. She has money. She's fine. Oh, really? My aunt snapped. Then why would she say you threw her out onto the streets? I clenched my jaw. Because she's a manipulative, overbearing, boundary-stomping nightmare, that's why. I took a deep breath. She showed up at my house with a suitcase and tried to move in. Uninvited. We told her no. That's it. Silence. Then a long scoff. Wow, my aunt muttered. You really are heartless. I held back a bitter laugh. Here we go again. She's your mother, my aunt continued. The woman who sacrificed everything for you. And this is how you repay her. I had enough. I'm not discussing this, Linda. Fine, she snapped. But don't come crying to me when she's gone, and you realize what a horrible daughter you are. Click. I let out a shaky breath and tossed my phone onto the couch. Noah, who had been listening from across the room, raised an eyebrow. So, she's starting a smear campaign? I nodded. Looks like it. He exhaled, running a hand through his hair. She's not gonna stop. I laughed bitterly. Did you really think she would? And that's when it started. The full-scale attack on my life. For the next few days, my mother was on a mission. She called everyone. My aunts, my uncles, my cousins, even some of my old childhood neighbors. She told them all the same sob story. That I had thrown her out onto the street. That I had abandoned her after all she had done for me. That I had chosen my husband over my own flesh and blood. Suddenly, my phone was flooded with messages. Some were supportive, but many were vicious. Cousin Lisa, you're a disgusting human being. She's your mother. Former neighbor, I always knew you were selfish, but this? Unforgivable. Uncle Mark, voicemail, I hope your child treats you the way you treated your mother. Maybe then you'll understand. I sat on the couch, staring at my phone in disbelief. She's actually trying to ruin my life. Noah took the phone from my hands, scrolled through the messages, and exhaled sharply. This is next level insane. I laughed bitterly. What did I expect? She's been controlling me my whole life. The second I break free, she loses it. And then, as if the universe had decided things weren't bad enough, she showed up. Again. It was a Saturday afternoon. Noah was outside working on the lawn. I was inside rocking my baby to sleep. Then, bang, bang, bang. Loud. Furious. Pounding at the door. I froze. I already knew. I stood up, heart pounding, and opened the door. And there she was. My mother. Her makeup was smeared, her eyes red from crying, or maybe from pure rage. Before I could even speak, she shoved past me, storming inside. I hope you're happy. I blinked, shocked. You've turned the whole family against me, she shrieked. You have two choices, young lady. Either I move in and help raise my grandchild, like a good mother should, or I cut you off completely. I just stared. Excuse me? She folded her arms. If you turn me away again, you're dead to me. You'll have no mother, no support, nothing. And don't think I won't tell your child what an ungrateful daughter you were. Something inside me snapped. I took a deep breath, steadying my voice. Then I guess I don't have a mother anymore. Her mouth dropped open. Get out. She stumbled back, stunned. You don't mean that. Noah, who had just come inside, stepped next to me. She does, he said, his voice firm. And you heard her. Leave. My mother's face twisted in rage. You will regret this. And then, for the second time, she stormed out of my house. But this time, I knew she wasn't finished with me yet. For a brief moment, I actually believed she was gone for good. I should have known better. Because my mother? She wasn't just controlling, she was vindictive. The first sign that something was seriously wrong came 2 days later. I was rocking my baby to sleep when Noah walked into the nursery, his face pale. His jaw was tight, his phone clutched in his. And we have a problem. I frowned. What? He handed me his phone. Check our bank account. Confused, I took his phone and logged in. And then my stomach dropped. Thousands of dollars were missing. What the hell? I gasped, my heart hammering. Where did all our money go? Noah's face was tight with barely contained fury. I called the bank. He swallowed hard. Apparently, it was transferred out earlier today. Then he exhaled sharply. Guess whose name was on the transfer request? I felt my blood run cold. No way. Noah nodded grimly. Your mother. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. How? My voice shook as I tried to process it. And then it hit me. I knew exactly how. Months before I gave birth, she had helped me set up a joint savings account for emergency baby expenses. At the time, she made it seem like she was just being supportive. I had no idea she had kept access to it. I had no idea she would drain it. I felt sick. She stole from us. Noah's hands curled into fists. She stole from her own daughter. I dialed her number, my hands shaking with rage. She answered after the first ring. Her voice was infuriatingly calm. Hello, sweetheart. I was just about to call you. I gritted my teeth. Where's our money? She sighed dramatically. Oh, that. Her voice was fake sweet, like she was talking to a child. Well, considering how horribly you treated me, I figured you owed me some compensation. I saw red. Compensation? You stole from US. She laughed lightly. Oh, don't be so dramatic. Was my money too. I helped set up that account, remember? I had every right to it. Noah, who had been listening on speaker, stepped in. That was our baby savings. She scoffed. Maybe you should have thought about that before you threw me out like garbage. I was shaking with rage. Give it back. Now. She sighed. Oh, honey. That money is already gone. My breath caught. What do you mean gone? I mean, she said sweetly, I used it. A little vacation. Some personal expenses. You know, just enjoying my life. I thought I was going to be sick. You're a monster, I whispered. She laughed. No, sweetheart. I'm just a mother who knows how to get what she deserves. Then she hung up. I stared at the phone in horror. Noah's jaw was clenched so tightly I thought he might break his teeth. We're calling the police. I nodded. A lawyer. Because if my mother thought she could get away with this, she was about to learn just how wrong she was. The next day we went straight to the police. Unfortunately, since my mother had technically been on the account, it wasn't considered theft in the legal sense. But that didn't mean we were out of options. Our lawyer was brilliant. He helped us file a civil lawsuit against her, citing fraud and financial abuse. Then we went a step further. We froze every remaining account she could possibly access. We blocked her on everything: phone, email, social media. We alerted our entire family that she had stolen from us, making it clear that anyone who sided with her was dead to us. And the best part? She wasn't expecting any of it. It only took a few days for her meltdown to begin. She started with texts. "Mom, this is a misunderstanding, sweetie. Let's talk." Then calls. "Mom, you can't do this to me. I'm your mother." And when we ignored all of it, she showed up at our house. Bang, bang, bang. We didn't answer. Bang, bang, bang. "I know you're in there. Open this door." We still didn't answer. Then the screaming started. She cursed us out. She sobbed dramatically. She threatened to call CPS and tell them we were unfit parents. She even threatened to sue us. For what? I have no idea. And then, when she realized we weren't going to budge, she did the one thing that proved just how truly insane she was. She called the cops on us. We watched from the window as a police car pulled up in front of our house. My mother ran up to the officers, fake crying, pointing at our house. I could only imagine the lies she was spewing. One of the officers came to the door, looking slightly uncomfortable. "Ma'am, we got a call about a possible domestic dispute." I sighed. "Let me guess. My mother called you?" The officer hesitated. "She claims you're holding her property hostage." I blinked. "Her property?" The officer nodded. "She says she left valuable items in your home and that you're refusing to return them." I almost laughed. Noah stepped in. "You're welcome to check, officer. She doesn't live here. She never did." The officer looked at my mother, who was still sobbing on the sidewalk, then back at us. He sighed. "I had a feeling this might be a family dispute. We won't get involved in that." Then he turned to my mother and said the most satisfying words I had ever heard. "Ma'am, if you don't leave this property immediately, we'll have to charge you with trespassing." Her face. She turned bright red, opened her mouth to argue, and then she realized she had lost. For the first time in my life, she had no power over me. And she knew it. I stood there, gripping the phone, my breath shallow as my mother's voice echoed in my ear. "That money is already gone," she said so casually, as if she hadn't just drained our entire baby savings account. My mind went blank. I had known she was manipulative, I had known she pushed boundaries, but this? Stealing from me? No, from my child. This was and Noah, sitting beside me, was already on his laptop, clicking furiously. "Bank statements," he muttered, eyes scanning the screen. "Transfer started 2 weeks ago." She didn't just take one big sum, she was I swallowed the lump in my throat. She had planned this. She hadn't acted on impulse. She had knowingly, intentionally stolen from us, and then had the audacity to call it compensation. A slow burn of anger started in my chest. "We need to fix this." Noah's jaw tightened. "We will." I turned back to my phone and pulled up my mother's number. The call rang once before she picked up. "Ah," she hummed, sounding smug. "Finally coming to your senses, sweetheart?" I clenched my fist. "Where is our money?" A dramatic sigh. "Oh, honey, you can't expect me to keep track of every little thing." My blood boiled. "That wasn't your money?" "That's debatable," she shot back. "I helped set up that account. You never would have been able to do it without me." I figured I was just taking what I was already owed. My grip on the phone tightened. "I hope you're ready for what's coming." There was a pause. Then a laugh. A laugh. "Oh, please," she scoffed. "What are you gonna do? Call the cops?" "Go ahead. I had access. You'll just look like an ungrateful brat." I hung up. Because honestly, she was right. At least, legally speaking. She had been on the account when it was created, which meant that technically the bank wouldn't treat this as theft. But that didn't mean she was getting away with it. I turned to Noah, my pulse racing. "She thinks she won." He smirked. She won't for long. Noah didn't waste a second. The moment I hung up, he was already dialing. Who are you calling? I asked, my voice still shaking from rage. Our lawyer. My stomach twisted. But she had access to the account. Isn't that going to make it hard to get the money back? Noah gave me a sharp look. Hard? Maybe. Impossible? Hell no. As he explained the situation to our lawyer, I started digging through my own records. If my mother thought she had covered her tracks, she had underestimated me. Within minutes, I found the emails, the ones she had sent me months ago when she insisted on helping set up the account. I pulled up our text messages too. Every manipulative guilt trip, every attempt at gaslighting me into thinking I needed her in my life. But the real kicker? I found an email confirmation of a recent wire transfer. The amount? $2,500. The recipient? A travel agency. I nearly laughed. She hadn't even tried to hide it. Noah hung up and turned to me. Our lawyer says we might not be able to get her arrested, but we can absolutely sue her for fraud and financial abuse, especially since she misrepresented herself to gain access to our funds. My heartbeat steadied. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. This was about justice. She booked a damn vacation, I muttered, handing Noah my phone. His eyes darkened as he read the email. That's it. He reached for his laptop again. What are you doing now? He smirked. Canceling her trip. I watched as he called the travel agency, impersonating her husband, which legally wasn't even a lie. He had been handling all finances for her when we were low contact. Within minutes, the agent confirmed that the trip was non-refundable. She just lost every dollar, Noah said with a satisfied grin. I sat back, exhaling. Good. But we're not done. Because my mother wasn't just going to walk away from this. We needed to make sure she felt the weight of every single action she had taken. The next morning, we went straight to the bank. We met with the branch manager, a polite older man who clearly recognized my last name. When I explained the situation, his face shifted into something between concern and frustration. She's been a customer here for years, he admitted. But she shouldn't have had ongoing access to that account after the primary user changed. So what does that mean? Noah asked, voice tight. It means, the manager said carefully, we'll be conducting a full internal investigation. If it turns out that she exploited an oversight in our system, we'll be required to file a fraud report. I almost laughed. A fraud report. As we left the bank, I turned to Noah. So, best case scenario? She gets flagged in the system, and her bank access is frozen until the investigation is complete. I grinned. And worst case? She gets blacklisted from using any major bank in the state. I couldn't wait to tell her. I didn't have to tell her. She found out on her own. That night, my phone started buzzing with back-to-back calls from my mother. I let them go to voicemail. Then came the text. Mom, what did you do? Mom, my card got declined at the store. Mom, you ungrateful little brat, you think you can play games with me? I stared at the screen, watching her spiral in real time. Then, just as Noah and I were getting into bed, my phone rang again. But this time it wasn't my mother. It was my aunt. I sighed. Here we go. I picked up, putting her on speaker. Hello. What the hell did you do to your mother? She screeched. I rubbed my temples. What are you talking about? She called me in a panic. She said the bank locked her out of all her accounts. She can't access her money, she can't even pay her rent. Are you seriously this cruel? I exchanged a look with Noah. Bingo. I leaned back on the pillows. Oh, you mean the money she stole from me? That money? My aunt huffed. That wasn't stealing, it was a misunderstanding. No, I cut her off, my voice cold. It was fraud. And now the bank is investigating her for it. Actions have consequences. There was silence. Then my aunt scoffed. You're going to regret this when she's homeless. Noah laughed. Oh, I doubt that. She just tried to go on vacation. Didn't she? The stunned silence on the other end was delicious. Then click. I set my phone down, smirking. She hung up. Noah pulled me into his arms. She's panicking. And she should be. We turned off the lights, falling asleep to the knowledge that my mother's entire world was crumbling. The next morning she showed up. I was in the middle of changing the baby's diaper when Noah called from downstairs. "Babe, you might want to see this." I hurried down, wiping my hands on a towel. And there she was, standing on our porch, looking like a woman on the verge of collapse. Her hair was a mess, her eyes wild, her clothes wrinkled. She didn't look like the put-together, prim woman she always pretended to be. She looked desperate. I folded my arms. "What do you want?" She threw up her hands. "We need to talk." Noah stood beside me, silent but firm. "We don't actually." She ignored him, eyes locked on me. "Sweetheart," she said, switching to her softest, most pitiful voice. "You've made your point. I get it. You're upset. But you don't have to destroy me over this." I tilted my head. "I don't." It took a shaky breath. "I know I crossed a line. But I'm your mother. I raised you. I was there for you through everything. You can't just cut me off like this." Something in me snapped. "Oh, I can." I stepped forward, my voice sharp. "Because, funny enough, being a mother doesn't entitle you to ruin your child's life." Her face twitched. "I was only trying to help you." "No. You were trying to control me. Just like you always have. And when that didn't work, you stole from me." She pressed a hand to her chest, looking offended. "I did not steal from you." I pulled out my phone, scrolling to the bank statement showing the fraudulent transfers. I held it up. "What do you call this then?" Her face turned red. I thought I had access. You manipulated me into opening that account. You lied to the bank to keep your name on it. And then you drained it without telling me." I took a step closer. "That's theft." She shook her head. "I just borrowed it. I would have paid you back." Noah scoffed. "With what money?" Her mouth opened, then closed. She had no answer. And that's when I knew. She was broke. All the years of pretending to be financially secure, of acting like she was better than everyone else, it was all a lie. And now, the one person she thought she could leech off of had cut her off. I exhaled. "You're done, Mom?" Her eyes darkened. "So that's it." Her voice turned bitter. "You're just going to throw me away like I'm nothing?" I didn't blink. "You threw yourself away. And now you get to live with it." Noah stepped forward. "You need to leave." She let out a humorless laugh. "You'll regret this." I smirked. "No, Mom. You will." And with that, I shut the door in her face. For a moment, I thought that was the end. I was wrong. Because my mother? She wasn't just desperate. She was dangerous. And she still had one last move to play. For a few weeks, everything was quiet. Too quiet. No random phone calls, no dramatic texts, no surprise visits. It was like my mother had finally given up. Noah and I were cautious but relieved. I focused on my baby, on healing, on getting my life back to normal. But deep down I knew she wasn't done. And then one morning I got the call that changed everything. It was my bank. "Mrs. Reynolds? We received a fraud alert regarding your credit card." I frowned. "Fraud?" "Yes. A woman attempted to open a second card under your name. When asked for verification, she provided incorrect answers, then got aggressive with our staff. She claimed to be your mother." My stomach dropped. Noah, who had been feeding the baby, glanced up. "What is it?" I covered the speaker and whispered, "My mom just tried to open a credit card in my name." His face darkened. "That's it. We're done playing nice." I turned back to the banker. "Can you send me all the details? I'm reporting this to the police." "Absolutely," the rep said. "And for your security, we've placed a freeze on all new accounts under your name." I exhaled. "Thank you." This was it. My mother had gone from stealing my money to committing full-on identity theft. It was time to end this for good. I didn't just go to the police, I went nuclear. I filed an official fraud report, and my lawyer drafted a cease and desist letter, warning my mother that if she ever attempted to access my finances again, she'd be facing serious charges. Then I sent copies of the fraud report to every family member she had manipulated. Aunts, uncles, cousins, even childhood friends she had lied to. The truth was out. She wasn't a victim. She was a criminal. I made sure she couldn't pull this stunt again, flagging her name with every bank and credit bureau I could. I changed every password, updated every security question, and legally blocked her from any financial connection to me. And the best part? She didn't see it coming. The next day my phone rang. It was her. I answered, keeping my voice cold. What do you want? Her voice was shaking. You called the police on me? I smirked. You stole from me. Then you committed fraud. What did you think was going to happen? You're ruining my life, she shrieked. I actually laughed. No, Mom. You did that all by yourself. She let out a hysterical sob. You think you're so smart? You think you can cut me off and walk away? I will never forgive you for this. You are dead to me. I smiled. Good. That's exactly what I wanted. And then I hung up. I blocked her number. Blocked every relative who tried to guilt me. And just like that, she was gone. Over the next few months, my mother's entire world collapsed. She lost her apartment. After blowing through the stolen money, she had no savings, no one left to manipulate, and no way to afford rent. She became a social pariah. After I exposed her, even the family members who once defended her turned their backs. No one wanted to be associated with a fraud. She tried to move in with a cousin, but they kicked her out after 1 week. And then the final blow. She called me. A random, unknown number popped up on my phone. I hesitated, then answered. A small, broken voice whispered, "Please? I have nowhere to go." I let the silence stretch. Then I spoke the last words I would ever say to her. You made your bed. Now lie in it. Click. I blocked the number. And just like that, she was out of my life forever. Today I have zero regrets. My husband and I are thriving. My baby is growing up in a healthy, loving home. And my mother? She's nothing but a bad memory. Some people will tell you that family is everything. That you should always forgive, always mend fences no matter what. I disagree. Toxic is toxic. And just because someone gave birth to you doesn't mean they deserve to be in your life. My mother thought she could control me forever. She thought she could own me. Instead, she lost everything. And me? I finally won. For the first time in my life, my mother had no control over me. No guilt trips, no manipulations, no fake tears. She had tried to steal from me, ruin my reputation, and even commit fraud in my name. But I wasn't the scared little girl she used to manipulate. I was done playing defense. It was time to finish this for good. First, I made sure she could never financially recover. The fraud report I filed wasn't just a slap on the wrist. It triggered an investigation into her entire financial history. My lawyer worked fast, proving that she had been illegally accessing my accounts, forging documents, and committing financial abuse. The result? She got blacklisted from opening any accounts for years. No credit, no loans, no easy money. She had drained my savings? Well, now she couldn't open a bank account without serious legal scrutiny. Then I went after her reputation. She had spent years controlling the family narrative, making herself look like a loving, selfless mother while painting me as the ungrateful daughter. So I flipped the script. I sent detailed evidence, bank records, text messages, the fraud report, to every family member, mutual friend, and even some of her former coworkers. The backlash was immediate. People she had manipulated for years turned against her. No one wanted to be associated with a woman who stole from her own daughter and grandchild. Aunts and uncles who once defended her? Silent. Old friends? Gone. Even distant relatives who never took sides cut her off completely. But I wasn't done yet. She had tried to ruin my life, so I made sure she had nothing left. I knew she was still trying to find ways to get money from other people, so I set a trap. Through a friend, I leaked that I had come into a large sum of money after the fraud case. I knew she wouldn't be able to resist. Sure enough, she took the bait. A week later, she sent a fake apology. I miss you. I was wrong. Let's fix this. I ignored it. Then she got desperate. She called me from a new number, sobbing. Please, I have nothing left. I need help. I could hear the sheer panic in her voice, but I felt nothing. I let the silence stretch before calmly saying, No, Mom. You need consequences. Then I hung up. And that was the last time I ever spoke to her. The aftermath was brutal. With no family left to manipulate, no credit, and no job prospects, my mother lost everything. She ended up couch surfing, begging old friends for favors, but no one wanted to be around her anymore. Eventually, she disappeared. Some distant cousin mentioned she moved to a rundown apartment in a different city. Alone. Forgotten. Powerless. And me? I was free. For the first time, I lived without fear, without guilt, without the constant weight of her manipulation. Noah and I built a beautiful, healthy life. Our child grew up surrounded by love, not toxicity. We thrived. And my mother? She spent her last years suffering the consequences of her own actions. Some people say revenge is petty, that cutting off family is cruel. But you know what's cruel? A mother who steals from her own child and expects to get away with it. She thought she could control me forever. Instead, she destroyed herself. And I never looked back. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't just winning. It's watching the person who tried to ruin you destroy themselves instead.